Welcome to Real Talk for Real Fundraisers, the podcast where fundraisers, nonprofit leaders, and industry experts come together to vent, laugh, and learn. Through candid storytelling and insightful interviews, we explore the highs, lows, and everything in between. With a fearless, irreverent, and conversational tone, we're breaking down barriers, challenging the status quo, and creating a safe space to tackle the real struggles of the nonprofit world, one honest conversation at a time. Now here's your host, Jeff Schreifels.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. I have as my guest probably one of the greatest direct response fundraising creative directors, strategists, writers in the business. Jeff Brooks is our guest today. And if you have followed his blog called Future Fundraising Now, you've gleaned an amazing amount of fundraising knowledge. And I have all kinds of questions for Jeff. So why don't we bring him in and let's get ready for some real talk. Hey, Jeff.
Jeff, hey, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for being on the show today.
I'm glad to be here.
Okay. I just introduced you as probably one of the greatest creative direct response fundraising creative directors, strategists, writers that I've known and probably reflected in the business. So why don't you give a little history? How did you get here?
Well, I was tricked into it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us were, but I was fresh out of school, looking for work, and I wanted a writing job. So I was getting in touch with, this a long time ago, so there were newspapers, and I was talking to them and doing all these frustrating interviews. And then one of them was as an editor for this charity that worked in India.
Yeah.
And they mentioned, it was like a warning, you'll have to go to India. And I go, oh, cool, I want that. So I got this job. And I thought the job was, to do their newsletter and their publications and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was it. But I was also going to do the fundraising writing. They did some direct mail and stuff. And I did not get it. I just did not understand. I'm like in my 20s and there was nobody, in a very small organization, there's nobody there who really knew anything. So I didn't have mentors or, I just kind of had to guess. I got a book. It was a book by K. Partney Loutman. I don't know if you remember this book. It was a big yellow book, is what I remember. And it was kind of the only one. It was called Dear Friend, and it was about doing direct mail for nonprofits. That was all I had. And in fact, I worked at this job for like 2 years. And then I thought, I'm going to go a different direction with my career. I went to grad school. I was going to become an academic, yada, yada, yada. I did that whole thing. And then after a few years of that, I realized this really sucks. I hate this. It's a treadmill, right? I mean, there are things about it that I actually wish I could do. Like, you read books all the time, you talk about books all the time, and you kind of live in a library. Yeah. But that, on the whole, not great. I mean, I was applying for jobs, really nowhere jobs, because that's what you have to start. Anyway, I got in touch with somebody I'd met when I worked at the nonprofit. It was a small agency that had done a couple of jobs for us and got to work there. And that got me my mentor. And I worked for a number of different organizations. And that's how you really learn, is like, you're not living in your isolated bubble. You are serving, a handful of nonprofits, and you'd better do a good job.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I had a really harsh, difficult mentor.
Okay.
Was like, I didn't get away with anything. Right. And it was difficult and hard. And it was discouraging, but it was boot camp.
I can imagine, like, you submit some copy and then you get it back and it's all full of red ink everywhere.
Yeah. No, it's worse than that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So this particular, he was owner of the small agency and creative director and a really, really amazing fundraiser. Um, you'd bring in your your Word doc with that you'd written, 2 copies. You'd hand one to him, and you'd have one in front of you. You'd sit at his desk, and here's the best part. He would sharpen his pencil in one of those electric pencil sharpeners while you're walking in. Now, I don't know if he was trying to be
Intimidate you?
scary. Yeah, I know. It was, uh, it was rough. And then he would, like, write on it and talk to you
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
live in real time. That's just kinda how
Right.
he worked. But you gotta say, I would never do that to somebody. But I would also say it's not such a bad way to get
I
points
mean,
across, you know?
talk about a baptism of fire, right? I
Yeah,
mean, you just,
yeah.
like, throw you in, and I can see, like, every time you went in there, it was probably a little bit less and less sharpening, because you're like, "Oh, you're starting to get it."
Yeah,
Now, maybe it took a while, but
yeah. I worked there for 2 years,
yeah,
so it took yeah, you're right, it took a while, but I was really learning. Probably the biggest thing I learned, we'll probably talk about this more later, is what's the offer?
yeah,
Or you've departed from the offer,
yeah.
or you've complicated the offer. That's kind of what most of
You're
the
getting in the way
criticism
of
was
the
about.
offer. Yeah,
Right. I mean, really, I walked in and the skill I had was I was a pretty good writer,
yeah,
but I didn't really know much else.
right, yeah. So, because there's a lot of people listening from all different stages of their careers here, right? So, how long did it take you that you felt, "Hey, I kinda know what's going on now?"
Um, Maybe next year. um, no, well, it is a moving target. That's sort of that sense, and I kind of feel like if you kind of hit the space where you say, "Yeah, I know everything,"
Yeah,
you're now on the downslope.
right.
um,
Not that you know
so
everything, but you kinda have a feel, "Okay, I this is my career, I love what I'm doing, and I think I think I have some knowledge now, and I'm helping other writers," like
yeah, yeah. Well, I then got work at a larger agency, uh,
Yeah,
the Domain Group, where you and I
yeah,
work together.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and I think it's there where I realized, okay, I think I get this now, because this was a knowledge based culture, the Domain Group. It's not the only one. Other agencies are like that. Um, but it was not one person, one genius running the whole thing. It was like a group of smart people working together.
yeah.
Um, the first agency job was kind of one genius running everything, and you just kind of do what he
What
wants
they
you to do.
said or he's yeah,
Right. It's a great way to learn, but it's not great. I mean, it kind of there's a ceiling over you.
right, right.
But at Domain and at the other places I've worked since, it's a bit more. It's a community of people
Yeah.
who think alike and work together and learn together. That's where you really grow.
Y Yeah, I wanna reminisce a little bit about Domain because for those that are listening, Jeff and I got to work together. Well, I was there from '96 to Domain merged with Merkle, but till about
Yeah,
2005.
yeah,
And one of the cool things about that experience was, as you are talking about, it was a learner environment, it was an experimental environment,
hmm
it was a place where you could take risks and, do some new things, and, for those that don't know, our first book that we wrote, it's not just about the money. You wrote the foreword to it, and you talked one of the cool things, you talked about how we'd have lunch, like, probably every week, we'd go out to lunch, we go to Happy Teriyaki, and the thing that I loved so much about it was that, while we got this really cheap, good teriyaki, we also had all these great conversations around fundraising and what works, what doesn't work, what could we do differently, and there would be, like, a group of us, sitting around talking about this. And it was such a collegial atmosphere,
Right.
a feeling
Right.
of, because you had account people and creative people together.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
guys would bash on us account people, and
Right.
you would like, you creatives don't understand,
Yep.
how the client works, and you can't get away with that, that kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
But it was just the workplace environment was such that you felt like you were creating a great thing. And the beautiful thing about direct response, of course, is that you got to test out these ideas and see if they were any good or not.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I remember one specifically, if you remember when we first got America's Second Harvest, which is now Feeding America,
Yes. Yes.
as the client. This was a huge thing for us at Domain. And they were willing to invest in trying to one, to grow their donor base at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
They wanted to double and they wanted, and they put the resources towards it. But we must have tested hundreds of different kinds of ideas, offers and envelopes and writing this and this different approach. And it was just this creative atmosphere of trying to figure out, how do we help grow this thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just this wonderful place where, we didn't have it all figured out, but we got to try
Yeah.
and play
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah. And we got to make mistakes. I feel like that's one of the the great things at the Domain Group was you weren't in trouble if you made a
Yeah.
mistake.
Yeah.
And they instilled this attitude, which I totally believe in now, that if you're not making mistakes, you're not doing the right work.
Exactly.
You got to get it wrong. And you got to get it wrong 3 times for every time you get it right or more, a lot of people are so afraid to make mistakes that they don't do anything great. They limp
Yeah.
along and avoid mistakes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
That was cool. And we got great clients. We had top clients who
Yeah.
knew what they were doing and are also willing to make mistakes. Sometimes we got some not so great clients, but on the whole, it worked. It worked really, really well.
I remember some of these times you'd be around the table and you're like, "Oh, this is bullshit." I'm like, okay, and you're mostly right about some of the clients and just how, they didn't want to take risks, but most of them did because they believed, they trusted us. But
because we got results. Yeah. Right.
But it was such a great place to work just because of that atmosphere, and what a special time that you don't always get that. And so if you're listening and you're in a place that is, you're not learning, or you don't feel like you got camaraderie, or that there's a real sense of community within your workplace, I hope that you get to find that sometime, because for you and I, that was an amazing thing. And we've been bonded from that experience all through our career now. Like, we've been away from Domain more than we
Decades.
were together.
That's right. Yeah.
But we all, kind of stay in touch with one another and all of that. I just think that's really special.
It is. Yeah. And when it's over, you look back, you think, and I've had, a number of jobs since then. That was special. And we were blessed and very fortunate to have that time. Now, there are lots of ways to do it. And I imagine most of the people listening to this are not agency people, but they're working in nonprofits.
Right.
But you still want to find that. You want to find community. You want to find a mentor. You want to find like-minded people that will help you explore and make mistakes and find new things and cry on each other's shoulders. I mean, you really need all of that.
You do. So if you don't have that, seek that out. That's an important thing.
Yeah.
It's funny. Has anyone ever told you that your office looks a lot like Tom Ahern's back office? Both of you guys are creative writers in the direct response world. And if you ever notice Tom, and when he's online, his office is just like, there's books everywhere and papers and all that stuff. So it must, brilliant people that's what their backgrounds are, Mine's pretty clean. I like my desk
Right.
all cleaned off and
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
everything.
You can't see my desk, but yes, it's a
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's tap into some of your wisdom because you've been doing this for a long time. One thing I want to talk about is in our industry, we're always talking about how we're not retaining donors. Nonprofits are continually struggling with this. Why is this? Why are we struggling so much to retain donors and value from donors? What's going on?
well, I think there's two main things, and one of them is not our fault, but the other is our fault.
Okay.
The not our fault part is there's a lot of competition for attention and dollars of donors. There's an incredible amount of competition.
Yeah.
So no matter what you're doing, the people you're talking to, your donors and your would-be donors, are hearing similar things from others.
Hmm.
So that makes everything really difficult. The part that is our fault is that we really have a hard time being relevant to them.
Mm-hmm.
I think the working assumption for most nonprofit fundraising these days, and not just these days, but basically all the time,
Hmm.
is, hey, we just tell them how awesome we are and how important our cause is, and people will dump money on us.
Yeah.
And no, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's proven not to work. If you want people to do something, if you want donors to get on board with you, you have to enter their world and talk about what they can do. And
That's we're not doing that.
fundraisers don't do that. No, I mean, many do. Lots and lots do. But many just say, I refuse to do that. I will not lower myself to that level because it means you have to be simple. You have to be clear. You have to be, you don't give them all the glorious detail of your
Yeah.
methodology, which is all good stuff, all important stuff. I hope you're on top of it all. But that's not what you're selling.
Yeah.
People don't give to fund your organization. They give
Right.
to make something great happen.
That's right. That's
And
right.
you need to make it about that. Here's a problem. Here's a solution. Donor, would you like to be part of that solution? That's all it is, really.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is so it's not just a problem with smaller dollar donors, acquisition, cultivation. It also is so at Veritas, we're working typically with 1,000 plus cum and above, mid-level to major gifts. And when we look at analysis, it's terrible. Like we see value attrition rates 40 to 60% a year. Besides the donor retention, the value is either donors are going away and stop giving or they're giving less.
Right. Right.
You're the thing that I would add to it, in addition to what you said, is that at that level, we're not adding value to a donor's life.
Right.
That's what I
Right.
right?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
they're wanting to change the world with a significant gift. And if they stop giving or they give less, obviously we're not doing a good enough job of bringing some kind of value to them. They're not seeing how their gifts are making a difference.
Yeah.
So they don't see the
Yeah.
impact of their giving. We don't do a good job with that. Or we don't provide an offer that hits that value, that matches their passions and interests
Right.
well.
Right.
So, yeah. So, what do you say? What are some of the elements that make a superior donor offer that gets results? What have you found?
Well, I've been struggling for decades on like how do we talk about this, and
Yeah.
I kind of keep coming up with sort of these different formulations. And what I feel like is the most basic, simple one is problem, solution, invitation. That's what an offer is. That doesn't quite get you there, does it? It sort of sets you up a framework. I also find that different causes might have different formulas, for how you get there. But here's the thing: you better go to your donor with something specific. And when I say specific, I mean like something you can take a picture of. an action or an object or something that you could actually take a photograph, because support us, that's not that, right?
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
it's really hard not to say support us because that's how it looks to you,
Right.
right? You say,
Right.
hey, they're going to support us. They're going to send us money and then we'll be able to do our work. And that's how it looks to you. That's fine. But that's not how it looks to them. And that's why we missed the boat. We say it wrong.
Mhm.
So that first thing is specificity. Now, that can also be difficult because a lot of us, maybe most of us, are tasked with raising unrestricted dollars, right? And so, well, we do have this program, and it's like we give out breakfasts to kids in the schools, and that much costs this much, but that's like 4% of our budget. So we don't really want to talk about it. It's a great offer, but we don't want to talk about it because we can't really we're going to get too much money for this one thing.
Yeah.
What we have to learn is, well, you have to be specific, even when you're not getting specific money.
Okay.
And I think that kind of puts people in a box where they think, oh, unrestricted money means unrestricted conversation about people giving money.
Right.
It's not. You've got to be specific.
Okay.
Um, so, specific, and ideally, you know what it's going to cost to
Mhm.
make that specific thing happen. You know why it needs to happen right now. You need to know what's the urgency,
Mhm.
and you need to be able to describe what's the impact of it going to be. So it's that I call it the offer diamond: specificity, cost, urgency, and then impact.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get very specific, like you could say, $1 will send $7 worth of food
Mhm.
to people who need food. That was the food bank / Feeding America offer that propelled them to new
Yeah.
heights.
It's a great deal.
Right, right. So there's a lot of impact, right? You give even a small amount of money, and a lot of food goes, and it removes food from the waste system and gets it to people who need it. That's a good offer, and it also has the advantage of it's kind of based on budget, their total budget and their total
Yeah.
impact. So it's sort of
That's right.
everything's bundled in there. So it's unrestricted money. You got to raise money to pay your fundraisers' salaries. If you don't do that, you can't do your work. But
Right.
you're gonna have a hard time finding very many donors who are gonna raise their hand for that.
Correct.
But it's like getting there. That's the hard part. I mean, like say you're a hospital, you're not going to do very well saying, donor, you could buy a beaker for our medical research. It's only $850. That's not going to work very well, right?
No.
It's maybe real and it's specific, but so you're going to have to find a different way to talk about it. And it's hard. It's just hard to do. It takes a lot of work, a lot of brain work, a lot of experimentation,
Yeah.
which is why it doesn't happen often enough.
And there's also a whole strategy different, so you have an acquisition strategy where you would have the most broad thing that you can do, but most specific thing, like you're saying, $1 releases $7 of food, and that appeals to a big audience, pretty wide
Right.
audience.
That's right.
And then once you bring them in, you might talk a little bit differently about some of the things that you're doing as you're engaging that donor into you're kind of like, here's what you came in on. That did something really good. And let me tell you more about what we do. And over time, as that donor engages, they're finding out more things about you. And as they give more, they're finding out even more things, so that when a donor now becomes a major donor, you're talking about, we need this new computer system to help us reach the 250 food banks around the country within seconds, and tells them where the food goes and all of that. And that's going to cost $15.7 million. You know what I mean?
Right.
You
Right.
wouldn't be able to use that offer for the mass audience.
It would fall flat. Yeah,
It would fall
exactly.
flat.
Right.
So it's all about knowing your audience, where they are in the engagement of that organization, and then finally how big those gifts could be. So, yeah.
Right. Well, and it's maybe worth noting I mean, a lot of organizations kind of get it wrong because they think, well, we got to educate the donors on what we do. And
Yeah.
so they
Yeah.
send out direct mail that's all about the computer system.
No.
None of it works that way. What's the opposite way? Which
Yeah.
is people who give a little bit of money to do one specific real thing are more likely to become more educated because they have their heart
That's
and
right.
their money in it. And those people, not all of them, but some of them will climb up sort of the knowledge ladder. And then our job is really to kind of match their passions and their giving capacity.
That's
And
right.
you find where those two things cross, and that's
Yeah.
where major donors are. It's like
Yeah.
somebody with a large giving capacity and a lot of passion
Yeah.
about what you do.
Yeah. Okay, let's move away from now donor offers. I want to tap into your vast experience of just nonprofits in general and overall your impressions, because I know you, I know at Domain, you had a lot of strong opinions about what nonprofit leaders and nonprofits should be doing. And if like, what are like three things that if you could sit with an executive director of any nonprofit and say, this is where I want you to focus. Maybe it's more than three, maybe it's only two. I don't know. This is where you as the leader should focus around the fundraising. That would make everything a lot better. What would it be?
Yeah. Well, it would probably start with please value your donors.
Yeah.
I think that the kind of the root of things not going well is they don't really properly value donors. And in some cases, it's like outright hostility toward donors. Like, I don't like working with these people. They're too unsophisticated. And they're on this sort of constant search for better donors.
Yes.
Well, guess what? They don't exist, right? At least they don't exist in scale,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So they're always frustrated donors. Just believe in, they're older people, your donors. They are not like you. They are less educated than you. Actually, they're more educated than the general population, but they're less educated than you. And they're older than you. And they're not as cool as you. And
Yeah.
they need you to like pare it down and keep it simple. And I know that's annoying. And I know to some of your program people, it practically feels like a lie to simplify this thing they do that they do so well.
Yeah.
But it's got to be, you know what? We have to go where people are. If you're, you've heard of the thing of like, if you're a leader and you have no followers, you're just a weirdo walking along by yourself. you know, um, if you want to lead people, you have to know what they want to do.
Right.
And it's going to be different from one organization to the next, but fundamentally not different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that might be the other thing is you're not as unique as you think.
Mhm.
Like so many organizations, like I don't know if I've ever had a client that didn't say this. Well, our donors are different because we are
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
And that's on the surface, that's true. But at the deep level, it's not true because basically donors are most likely to be women, even more most likely to be elderly, and maybe even more most likely than that, they're likely to be religious people.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
it's those three things are like that's where donors generally are, and
Yeah.
that might bug you. It might feel out of step with you,
Right.
and you could fight it and say, "Well, nope, we are going to go for younger donors." Well, that's a losing battle. There are very few young donors out there, and they don't stick with you.
I mean,
Um,
we've worked with hundreds of different types of organizations.
yeah,
You've worked with
yeah,
them. I've
yeah,
worked with them. And it's true. It's like everyone thinks they're different. They're, like, well, we're animal welfare. We're higher ed. It comes down to donors. Essentially, they need this compelling offer. They want to take care of a need, right? And how they respond is pretty much similar across and it's also internationally.
Yeah,
we
yeah, right.
we have donors where we have clients in Spain and Italy and the UK, and they all they
We're all the same.
respond the same way.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Totally my experience too. I work with organizations everywhere.
Yeah,
And, I've done direct mail for India. And you think, well, if there's a place that's, culturally different and maybe the donors are different, well, they're not. They really aren't.
yeah,
You've got to, there's language and culture things that you really better pay attention to that make them different. But actually, the reason direct mail in India doesn't work when I did it was the postal system didn't work well enough.
yeah, yeah,
Right? But that's a local condition, and that's true. There are various countries where the postal system kind of doesn't support us,
yeah, yeah.
or hasn't
That's
yet
true.
figured it
Yeah,
out. Um, that's actually one of the changes that's coming. Is there are countries now not where their postal system is kind of gone, and you can kind of see things happening here in this country where that might be coming. That's going to be rough. It's going to be a rough
that is rough.
transition.
It is. Yeah. I think innately, though, we as human beings have inside of us this need to give, and so whether we live here in the United States or Spain or Russia, we do all want to give something back.
Very, very basic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very basic. What do you think's gonna happen to our sector in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, the big changes that are coming, one would be if the postal system fundamentally changes, you've got this big challenge that you're going to have to
Yeah,
figure out how to get around that. There are ways, and the places where that has happened, like Denmark recently, that's been in the news lately, basically doesn't have a postal system anymore. Now, of
yeah,
course, you can get things to people's homes, right? But it costs more, and
right.
so anyway, that's probably coming in some way or another. But it happened to another place. The other thing that's has already happened and is happening is the end of paper checks as a way of
Yeah,
exchanging money.
yeah,
That has already happened in a lot of Europe. That has already happened.
mhm.
It just a
Yeah.
couple of years ago happened in New Zealand. It was kind of catastrophic
Hmm,
because uh, it's older people who give, and their habit is the way you pay is you write a check, and
right.
it's really hard for them to do it differently. Um, I mean, as you get older, and I can attest to this a little bit, um, it's hard to change a habit.
It is hard to
Um,
change.
and so that's rough. And if I would
Yeah,
say smart fundraisers in New Zealand found ways to help their donors get over that change, but giving went down.
yeah.
I mean, there was a fundamental loss of revenue from donors over that. So those are two things that kind of scare me. I suppose the technology changes and that that brings opportunity,
Yeah,
but it also brings challenge. Makes
yeah,
things harder. Probably the biggest thing that's been happening slowly, much more slowly than we thought it would, was money migrating from the paper world into the electronic world.
yeah,
I mean, it has been going for what 20 years. It's been, and every year, a little more money isn't coming into our office via the post, but is coming in over the net.
yeah.
That's kind of a big deal, but I think on the whole, if you're smart, you're making it work. You
So it's
just
the
got to be sure
principles
that,
of fundraising will always remain true.
yeah,
You have to have a you
yeah,
have to have a need, compelling need. You have to have an offer, and you have to have a way for donors to respond. And whether it's by mail, electronic, or whatever. I mean, a lot of nonprofits today are acquiring donors pretty successfully through canvassing. Those people on the street corners. I became a donor that way for one nonprofit,
yeah,
and I've been talking to some folks who use that, and the results are amazing. The long term value of those donors are huge, and that's not using the mail. It's using some individual person to actually reach out to donors
yes,
and acquire them right off the street.
yeah, yeah. There's a bunch of things like that. There's nothing
Yeah,
that is like amazing taking the place of mail yet, but there's like a lot of smaller things. And I think we
Yeah.
have to get smart.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to be able to make mistakes and learn and adjust. There are, search optimization works
Yeah.
quite well when you do it right.
Yeah.
Um, you can get sponsorships from online publications. I've seen some amazing results from that, where you get new donors at a really amazingly low cost
Hmm.
because you found an audience. You got
Yeah.
to kind of like match audience with cause and stuff like
Right.
that.
Right.
So you do want to keep your eyes open. I think maybe one of the things would be we go astray by saying the whole reason we're going to try such and such new thing is so we can get young donors.
Yeah.
That is probably that's a path toward failure.
Yeah.
Though um, older people are getting more and more digital,
Hmm.
and to incredible lengths. A friend of mine, Sean Triner, he was born in 1970, and he says 1970 is kind of the threshold year, because if you're born in 1970, you've spent your whole career using a computer as your main tool.
That's true.
Okay, I
Yes.
was born before. I was born before
Yeah.
that, and yeah, my first few years of my career, I used a typewriter, but most of my career has been using a computer, and I'm comfortable using a computer. I If I can't find an electronic way to do something, I will sometimes just not do
Yeah.
it. Right. And I
You
think,
put it on a desk somewhere, and that's why you have all these tools
right.
by you and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. I have a checkbook still, but it's for the guy who mows my lawn and the guy who trims the tree. And
Yeah.
and it's really just those two now. My
Yeah.
church finally figured it out. I used to have it for my church was the
Oh,
third
yeah.
one. They
Yeah.
now have a way I can pay them
Yeah.
electronically. So I'm hoping the other two will figure it out.
Right. Well, since your background, obviously was in writing, how do you feel AI is affecting fundraising writers' work right now, and where is that going to go?
Yeah. Well, it's a pretty interesting tool, and I've been
Yeah.
playing around with it.
Yeah.
It can do some kind of amazing things, but at this point, it can't do it by itself.
Yeah.
If you just walk into Chat GPT and ask for it to do an appeal, and you give it a few facts, it's going to write a really shitty appeal.
Yeah.
Um, if you have an AI that you have trained on fundraising principle, it'll write a pretty good appeal
Yeah.
that still needs a little bit of work.
Yeah.
you know. So I think like right now, we're at a scary place because I hesitate to say don't use AI, because an AI bad appeal is probably as good or better than 90% of human written appeals.
Yeah.
I
We've
hate
seen
to say
those.
it, but
Yeah.
ideally, at least right now, who knows where AI is going to be next month, but um, human assisted AI is kind of, I think, maybe the way to use it. In other words, and the other thing is, I don't think it's a really good idea to say, hey, AI, write an appeal for me. I give it small tasks.
Okay.
I will feed in, you know, 20 pages of interview notes, and I say, could you, write this into a narrative story?
Yes.
And it kind of, and I didn't have to check it because it sometimes misses the whole point of the
Yeah.
story. But
Right.
it writes a coherent narrative that I can stitch into the thing I'm writing. And that saves me a bunch of time. The other thing I use it for a lot is subject lines. I will write
Uh,
the email, I will
uh-huh.
put it in to a trained AI and say, hey, give me 20 subject lines for this. And I don't know if I've ever used one of the exact ones it gives me, but I always get a good idea. So
Yeah.
it saves me kind of that sort of hard lifting part of, okay, what's the right way to get people to open this? It gives you a bunch of good ideas, not quite great, but good. And you go from there. So I think it's a good tool. I think the scary thing is, and I've been seeing this in where I read an appeal that's kind of bad, and I think this kind of has the flavor of an AI written appeal.
Yeah.
And it's not very good. Although
Mhm.
it's still, I mean, it's not the worst thing.
Right.
If it had a training, it'll have an offer. Although a lot of the time it won't even have an offer. Most fundraising is going out without offers anyway. I hate to say it's not like it's not going to kill us all. I don't think it's going to kill us all. The part that kind of worries me is like right now we've got a lot of experienced copywriters who can take an AI appeal and make it better and human.
Yeah.
But how did we get there? We got there by writing thousands and thousands of appeals with our own brains,
Yes,
and
exactly.
we're going to be gone in a few years. And there won't be copywriters who did this, who went through that.
Right.
And how are they going to fix AI?
Yeah.
And it might be that the quality is going to drop meaningfully at that point.
Yeah. So what I wanted to ask you, who do you feel, you've worked with a lot of organizations. Who do you feel is doing fundraising right? And what is it? Why are they doing that? What does it look like?
Okay. Well, in general, the ones who are doing it right are still using direct mail.
Yeah.
They embrace the fact that their donors are older. They embrace the demography of their donors, beyond age, but what else is going on? I think one of the interesting things where donors are different would be different faith-based organizations. Different faith groups speak very different language, and that matters a lot. You really got to get that part right.
Yeah.
But psychologically, they're all the same. All donors are kind of the same. But it's the organizations that just get donors. And I think what gets in the way of that, in other words, I'm kind of answering your question by giving the opposite, but what gets in the way of that is when you've got brand guidelines that ignore these things. They're so eager for the brand is how awesome we are, how important we are, and we're looking for a younger demographic. That's what their brand exists to do, and that flies in the face of reality. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's going to take about 3 years for you to realize what a dismal failure it is. By that time, the person who brought it in will have moved on to go wreck a different organization. We see it all the time, right?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of pointing my fingers at the larger organizations that do that. I think it's the smaller organizations are where the energy is.
I do too.
They can't afford to do that bullshit.
Yeah.
They might want to, but they can't. So they keep just chunking out old-fashioned direct mail that works, sometimes doesn't, but they're doing the good stuff. And you can make decisions. I love working with small organizations because you can say, hey, do you want to do this? And they'll kind of look at, the two people there will look at each other and go, let's do that. Whereas with a large organization, there's a lot of people involved and they're protecting their territory and, all this stuff's going on. And I can see it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say, you asked me about some organizations. I'm going to name a few. They happen to be organizations I work with.
Yeah.
And they tend to be smaller.
Okay. But then people
but
can
they're
go
amazing.
look them up. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. First one I want to say, this is quite a small organization. It's called SOS Community Services. They are based in Ypsilanti, Michigan, which is a sort of a struggling Rust Belt outskirts of Detroit place. Struggling with poverty, unemployment, all that stuff. And it's a really small shop. It's basically two people do the fundraising work.
Yeah.
And they are just kicking it. They're small. Awesome. They're geographically limited. They're just in one county in Michigan, basically. And it's not it's not the county Detroit's in. But they're just paying attention.
Yeah.
Barbara Cecil, I hope she listens to this podcast. She's amazing. She pays attention to detail. She doesn't fight reality. She says, okay. And she tries stuff. Like she tried billboards a couple years ago. I kind of told her, I don't think you want to do that. But it didn't work, but it also didn't not work.
Yeah.
So, it seems to have moved the needle. I mean, it didn't have a direct response component, blah, blah, blah. But hey, that's maybe, I don't know if that was even a mistake, but it was one of those things that she was
Yeah.
able to do. She got donated space, all, called stuff like that.
Yeah.
So SOS Community Services, Cincinnati, Michigan. A bigger organization that I work with is a Meals on Wheels of San Antonio.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Meals on Wheels is one of those great, great, great offers. You almost
Yeah.
can't mess it up, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
basically we're just bringing meals to older people, people who are shut in and need help.
Yeah.
Um, it doesn't take specialist understanding to get that. And you can come up with a cost,
Yeah.
right?
That's the
Um,
best.
yeah. The challenge would be that the costs have gone way up. Not, the inflation of groceries has been part of that. And then since the pandemic, there's various challenges with getting them delivered. It used to be like almost entirely a volunteer driven thing. Um, it got really hard to get volunteers, and in some areas, some cities, some communities, that they're having to pay drivers, so things like that. But in San Antonio, the cost per meal is $9.50. That's cost per meal delivered to the door.
Yeah.
Still a pretty good deal.
Still a pretty
Right.
good deal.
It's
Yeah.
cheaper than going to a
Yeah.
restaurant.
Yeah.
And it's easy to understand, and you can scale it up. You can say, I want to send 10 meals, 100 meals. And you can go to major donors and say, we need a new oven. There's all kinds of cool stuff
Yeah.
you can do. So I say, I work with San Antonio, and they are just kicking it. It's amazing how well they're doing. They're getting new donors all the time. It's a time of crisis too, because
Yeah.
funding, government
Yeah.
funding,
Yeah.
that it affects different organizations at different amounts, but some of them have been catastrophically cut. They needed a lot of federal dollars, and they're not getting as much federal dollars. Others don't use it as much, so it's been less of an issue. But they've been just doing it, and they're growing in size. They're feeding more people,
Yeah.
and, and they're raising more money, and they have more donors just by just doing it right, and having a positive image in the community. All that stuff.
Yeah.
New Hampshire Lakes, they are an organization that's all about protecting all those 987 beautiful lakes in New Hampshire. I'm not sure if that's the right number, but there's a lot of lakes in New Hampshire,
Yeah.
and most of them have people living around them. And so whether it's your permanent home or your summer home, like a lot of like wealthy New Yorkers have a place up in New Hampshire, but they really care. They want their lake to stay nice. It's with climate change and with increased population, some lakes are in trouble. They're getting cyanobacteria blooms and invasive species, like stuff that can make your lake kind of nasty.
Yeah.
This organization is on top of that and is going out there with that message and getting smart about, well, how do we find donors? Well, they find lists of property owners who have property on or near lakes. I mean, that's people who are most likely to say, yeah, I really care about this.
Yeah.
So yeah, great work that they're doing. A challenging environment because they're also having the funding challenge, which is, their state is a little bit right leaning. So the state's kind of doing what the feds are doing. So money that used to count on is not there. They need donors. And I'd say my hat's off to organizations that are sort of navigating that. We are losing federal funding, but we are going to donors instead. It's tragic. I mean, what's happening in funding is tragic, but you probably want to be realistic. Every donor will eventually lapse. And if you are 60% funded by the government, at some point, someone's going to win an election, and you're going to lose that funding, some or all of your funding. You just that's going to happen. And it has happened in this case.
Yeah.
That's why you want lots of little donors, because among those little donors are some people who are going to be big donors.
That's right.
And some of them are going to put you in their will. And, the average charitable bequest is what is it now? It's like $40,000 in the US.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not a rich person's thing. That's a lot of donors, like almost anyone can do it. Now, the number who do it are a small percentage, but you've got to have a bunch of donors to talk to about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're really good at it, and maybe and some organizations are sort of more in the front line of getting bequests, you can have like 5% of all your donors putting you in their will.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
It's huge.
That
It's
means
a
you're going to
total
get money
untapped.
every year.
Yeah. It's totally untapped area we find. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
besides people not really having a major gift program, not having a plan giving program is
Right.
equally, if not more so,
Yeah.
worse, because you've got to those organizations that 15 years ago were really good about plan giving are okay now. They're weathering all these
yes.
other storms
Right.
because they had the foresight to say, you know what, if we're going to be around for the next 15, 20, 25 years, we've got to do this.
Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah. It works really well. I mean, get organizations that are good at it. Bequest revenue is like 5 times bigger than
Yeah.
donor revenue, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that, like, from the same people. Here's a group of
Yeah.
people we got.
Yeah.
Over the years, they gave this much.
Right.
But if you include the bequest from that 3 or 4%, it's this big,
Right.
huge, absolutely huge.
Yeah.
And that's, by the way, one of the reasons we're really lucky that donors are old people, because
Yeah.
you're not going to
Yeah.
be very successful in plan giving with younger people. They don't do it. They don't think about it. And direct mail donors are the best prospects for plan giving.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, there's all kinds of reasons. Like, don't walk away from the people who want to give.
I know.
As much as you'd like to. You
I
want to
know.
find cool people? No. Cool people are not good donors. There's some who are, of course.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
like, you're a good
Yeah.
donor, I'm sure, right, Jeff? and you're a cool person. Yeah, on the whole, young people are crap donors. They just,
I know.
they're at a different place in life, different amounts of money, different things going
Well,
on.
and that's the reason,
uh,
they don't have expendable income. They don't have disposable income like those that are 55 plus.
Right. Right.
It's just
Right.
it's just a fact.
It's just fact. Well, being 55 plus, and I kind of think of that sort of the threshold is the
Yeah.
age 55.
Yeah.
It's not only you're kind of at the height of your income, and after that point, it tends to go down. But there's also changes to your brain that make you more empathetic.
Right.
And probably, I mean, it's usually somewhere in your 50s where your kids move out. And wow, does your lifestyle change? You actually have a little more time to think.
Yeah.
Right. I remember I wrote 3 books after my kids left. There was no way
What
I was
am I
writing a
going to
book.
do? I'm going to write a book today.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I was like a half-time chauffeur, with the kids.
Yeah.
I only had 2 kids, and
Right.
yeah, they move out, they become adults, and suddenly you become more able to focus.
Right.
And I think actually, and I think this is, I think a major donor saying I've always heard is, it's harder to get the meeting than to get the donation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's actually, I think that's true of all donors. It's harder to get their attention to your envelope than it is to get them to write a check.
Right.
And that you're not getting the check if they don't open the envelope.
Right.
So you got to, attention is more precious than money.
That's right.
And harder to get. So at a certain age, they have a little more attention to share.
Yeah. All right. So before we go, I want to get your advice that you would have, because we have a lot of new fundraisers that have been just starting out in this business. What advice do you give a young fundraiser getting started who's working at a nonprofit today? What's some advice you would give them?
Learn everything you can. There are a whole lot of really good books, right? I'm sure, Jeff, you have kind of your stable that you say, read this book.
Yeah.
And there's a lot, right? Read a few fundraising blogs. I mean, not all the fundraising blogs are good, but most of them, there are more good ones than bad ones.
Yeah.
Go to conferences. That's where you'll meet people who have different experience. But maybe the most important is have a community and have a mentor. And it might be those two things are kind of the same, because your mentor might be several people that you work with rather than one.
Right.
But somebody who's more experienced than you, who can talk to you about stuff, who can, set you straight, or comfort you when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, those you really need other people. So if you're in a small nonprofit and you don't really have a community, or there's maybe only two of you, it's so common, one or two people doing it all. There are things you can do to find there's maybe your local AFP might be one.
Right. I was just going to say that's a great
Yeah.
opportunity there.
Yeah. And I know you guys at Veritas offer all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Where people can learn
we have
and
this
maybe get in
community
touch.
hub.
Yeah.
We have over 3,500 people around the world that kind of use this spot to say, hey, I've got this issue. What would you guys do? It's awesome. It's so cool.
It is amazing. Right. And in a way, I kind of think I'm with Mosianic too, and we have the same kind of thing. The Facebook group is so cool.
Yeah.
And people come on and ask questions. And actually, we have learned, we who serve the experts, say, don't answer this.
Yeah.
For a few days. Let other people answer it.
Yes.
Let the non-experts who are in the trenches do it. And it's better that way. Now, we sometimes chime in and say, hey, here's some perspective you might want to see. But on the whole, it's people in similar situations helping each other out. They care about each other. And I can't believe how generous people are. It's really amazing. It feels good to help somebody else, right? It feels good to send some money to a nonprofit. It feels good to help another fundraiser. It feels really good. You know?
It does. So how do people get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you or Mosianic? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, my sort of most public facing thing is my blog, futurefundraisingnow.com. And you can kind of find all the other stuff from there.
Yeah.
I have a sort of a business website. It's called Jeff Brooks, jeff-brooks.com. And that, I couldn't just get Jeff Brooks one word. Somebody else had that. I got one of these names. There's lots of people with my name.
Yeah.
I start with it. I work with Mosianic. It's an Australia-based but international a group of smart, like-minded fundraisers. We have a membership organization called the Fundraisingology Lab. You should join that. You really should. It's so amazing. But yeah, in fact, I think I'm not sure when we're going to be on the air, but enrollment is open for the lab. It's usually not open. But yeah, mosianic.com, you can find everything you need there. Or you can click through my website and then I get an affiliate thing.
Oh, yeah. Go to Jeff's website and then get on Mosianic.
That's right. Right.
Yeah. I love that.
But either way, join it. It's so good. Or work with Veritas. And there's some other ones, some really quality organizations that you can be part of.
Yeah.
It's really important. And there's a lot of great books, readable, wonderful Tom Ahern's books. They can change your life.
Yeah.
And make you smarter and happier.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. The conversation has been really fun. I really thank you for being a part of this and sharing your wisdom. It makes me miss those days that we had.
Yeah.
Happy
teriyaki.
I wish at the time I would have appreciated what we had. You know how boy, that was something special. I wish I would have thought about how special that was at the time.
We didn't know.
We didn't know.
Right.
But when you're with those folks again and you're sitting around talking, you're like, oh yeah, this is why it was so special. Yeah. So thank you for joining us. And for those listening, thanks for being a part of this, and we'll see you next time.